wonderful people. Juanita Price here. The other day, I was working on a talk regarding David and Goliath. It is a very familiar story where this shepherd boy gets wind of the fact that this giant, who was a member and a champion in the Philistine army, had been pretty much bullying and humiliating the men of Israel. Now, these men of Israel were soldiers, if you will, dressed for battle, and they were showing up for battle, you know, pretty much every day, I believe, for 40 days straight, only to have this giant um, com- completely humiliate them. Now, the scripture is not hiding the fact that, of course, his size is something to behold when it comes to just a comparison to natural everyday people being a being that was 9'9" tall. And so, of course, to someone who considers that something to fear, he was quite intimidating. But then you have David. David's not even in the army. He would be someone that I would consider someone who did not make the cut. You know, he did not receive the same training. He wasn't the one that was actually picked to fight in a certain way. But what he did do, or should I say, what distinguishes him and distinguished him from the rest is that he knew who not only he was, and that is to say, he is a child of God, a member of the family of God, but he also had what I call a very high view of God, which was worthy, of the Lord himself. And here it is, he overhears as he's bringing his brothers supplies, and he's on mission sent by his father to check on them to see how they were doing and to report back to him. He overhears this Goliath, and he is being condescending. He's shaming them, he's taunting them, he's bullying them, and the it's working. So the men of Israel, after hearing his threats and so forth, I mean, they were, as the Bible says, dreadfully ashamed. I believe this is 1 Samuel chapter 17. But not so David. To David, this was foreign. It was shameful. It was practically blasphemy, to have been humiliated in such a way, and fearful of Goliath, not because of who Goliath was, but because of who God is. And he said something so powerful. He said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he would speak this way, who he would actually um, take this position with the men of Israel. And he wanted to know how would the one who defeat him be rewarded. But I love what he said. He said that the one that would defeat him is the one who would also be removing the reproach off of the men of Israel. Not the reproach off of God, but the men of Israel as representatives of God. In other words, in David's eyes, this was unacceptable. This was a stain. It was a shame on the men of God, or the men of Israel. Why? Because they are, in a sense, the offspring of God, the children of God. So this kind of behavior and demeanor, and this kind of fear of this giant in David's eyes, was unacceptable. I think there's an amazing message in this, I think, even for all of us. We may not have the quintessential giant in physical form in our lives, but there are sometimes very large and gigantic things that fill us with fear, that drive us to want to run, that discourages us even from fighting. But I want you to zero in on something. You don't actually have to fight by yourself, that is. See, Goliath had all kinds of weaponry and shields, and just looking at how he was strapped with these things from head to toe, was intimidating by itself. But then let's look at the men of Israel. These men had training for battle, right? But David's training was not that of the army of men or mankind. His training was through life. Did you know that everything in your life contributes to the person that you have become today, the good, the bad, and the ugly? And then when those things, right, have been put in their proper perspective, meaning that nothing could happen to you without God knowing about it and without God even allowing it to a degree, right? It's being used, and God didn't cause the horrible things to happen, but God sure uses the things that we experience as part of our training, as part of our refining. So it is that in life, however we live and whatever painful things we experience, the challenging things that we experience, the good and the bad, as well as the ugly, God is a masterful weaver who weaves these things into something useful that adds value and strength to you at the end of the day. You ever look in the mirror and are proud of who you are and what you've become? Understand that that did not happen overnight, that there are many things you were not even aware of that contributed to you, that helped to build you and will build you. And so, why am I saying all of this? Oftentimes, it is a trick and a trap to dread and regret, the years that have gone by. But even worse, many times, our past is our greatest hindrance, meaning that we still drag along the memories. We still view what has happened in our lives as a thing that is still in our way. We literally agree and make the choice that this thing is still a wound of ours, that it has power, that it has say so in how I am going to be in my future, in what it is that I'm going to have, what it is that I can do. But not so, not so. I think that it may be time for many of us to let the past go. Much of the counseling that I do, you probably know already, doesn't have much to do all the time with what's happening in the present, but what has happened in the past, and the view in the eyes of the person as to how that past should actually impact them today. But what if you decided today that you're going to get closure, that your past is no longer going to hinder your future, and that while it may have been horrific, it may have been painful, it may have been dark, it may have been unfair, that you are refusing to allow it to have any more room, any more place, any more power over your present as well as your future. And that instead of being in constant lingering grief and dread and disappointment and regret over it, that you're going to shift your mindset and begin to thank God for the fact that you survived it and that you are here today. And to consider wiping the slate clean, meaning getting closure, letting it truly go, wiping the slate clean, and beginning to throw and thrust your entire trust in God, to shift your mindset to one of hope and excitement and anticipation for the future. It is damaging how we think if our thinking is not right, if our thinking is negative, if our thinking has failure, right, undergirding it. But you can shift the narrative of your life all in how you think, and you can shift it in the right direction if you choose, right, to believe the best for your future. Then there is healing. Yes, there are some that are in need of healing, and until they get that healing, their minds will be entrapped in bondage, meaning you are confined to always have to filter everything through your hurt before you can think and see anything. But if you can decide now, God, I surrender to your healing. And in fact, if I am holding on to any unforgiveness, any resentment concerning the ones who have caused me great harm in my life, I am releasing them to you today. In other words, I'm taking my hands off. I don't need anything from them. I don't even need their apology. I am giving them over to you, and I'm going to release you, take my hands off so that you can handle it. And Father, I choose to forgive. And I understand that in forgiving, it does not mean that I am somehow co-signing what was done to me. But what I am saying through this forgiveness is that I'm also refusing that this thing is not going to have any more impact in my life. It is not going to be the weight that weighs me down or the hindrance that prevents me from moving forward, or the rope that hangs me or the thing that stops me. That today is a new day. I do forgive. I'm opening up my heart to be healed, and I am going to continue to pray the prayer of Jabez, and that is this: Lord, bless me indeed and enlarge my territory. Cause me not to do harm. And then I will wait in expectation for your response. And I am confident that your response will be the same that you gave Jabez, and that is this: you granted his request. So you have permission to be excited about your future. No more looking over your shoulder. No more prophesying your doom. No more crystal ball fortune telling about your future, using your past to tell you what your future is going to be like. Begin to hope for the future. Begin to speak good things in your future. Begin to pursue your dreams. And if you no longer dream, or your dreams have been buried, ask God to stir them up and cause you to dream again. And I want you to go for everything that you have desired, that God has placed in your heart to do. I want you to go for your happiness and your joy. I want you to choose joy, to choose peace, to even refuse to have anybody remind you of the things that God has brought you out. It's time to move forward. No one, absolutely no one, gets very far while they're trying to walk forward while looking back. It's time to face forward and to be excited about the future, for the Lord will not rest until your brightness shines forward. And God's desire is that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Won't you embrace it? Won't you thank Him? Won't you wait with open arms for the Lord to rain down blessings that you don't have room enough to receive? In fact, I challenge you to grab the biggest dream and vision and desire you can get your hands on, and then get really, really excited about this, that the Lord can do exceedingly and abundantly and above all that you can either ask or think. Oh, yeah, it's true. It's true. Just believe it and then wait for it. The Lord bless you and keep you, and happy first day of your new life.